Hey guys, T here. Today I got a replay in the, well, I'm called to call it Aoba, being the northerner that I am, but I don't know how you say it. Aoba, maybe? Aoba? Whatever. It's a tier 5 Japanese cruiser. I haven't put up a cruiser video in a while. That's kind of a consequence of me. The first tier 7 I got was the Baltimore, the American tier 7, so I've already completed half the cruiser lines, and then the Japanese one I'm a little bit behind on compared to some of the other ships. You guys are kind of egging me on to get to Iowa. I do have the experience to unlock that ship. I just got to get about 3 million more credits, so probably have an Iowa video for you guys to check out maybe next week sometime. I know a few of you guys have been hoping to see some gameplay on that ship. But the Japanese cruiser line, I actually do like these ships quite a bit. I played them a lot when I was testing the game out during the alpha phase prior to the release, but since the game's launched, I haven't played them as much as a few of the other lines. I started off with American cruisers, Japanese battleships, and the UKA destroyers, so kind of filling in the other ships as I go. Anyway, the way I like to play these Japanese cruisers in general is kind of a long-range support ship, relying on HE shells primarily. I don't feel like the AP shells in these guns are particularly effective. There you can see I did launch a torpedo strike, and cruisers in general that are equipped with torpedoes, I typically use them defensively, probably about 70% of the time, give or take. Here's an offensive strike. It just kind of depends on positioning and opportunity, but a lot of times I'm not looking to use them to get into position with torpedoes. A lot of times you have to be in a semi-aggressive position. I don't feel like that's a very profitable play a lot of times, especially in the Japanese cruiser line. But there you see, we are able to put one strike on them, so it's not a bad torpedo launch against the Colorado here. Now you see I'm angling primarily directly at him. If you notice the secondary guns going off like I think mine are doing here, that's something you want to pay attention to. There they go right now. That's just kind of an indication. It's a reminder that someone's closing in on you. So use that to increase your awareness of what's going on. Cruisers, you guys have heard me say this numerous times, cruisers primarily want to be dealing with destroyers. Any destroyer that's close range I'll shoot at, regardless of what class ship I'm in, but cruisers are especially well suited to deal with destroyers, so I'm going to turn my attention to him. I should be using the sonar here that potentially could track that ship, and definitely would help detect any torpedoes that are in the water. Cruisers, it's very important for you to be utilizing your consumables. I think it's the most important, in terms of class of ship, it's the most important to be using your consumables. Not only for your own sake, but you're there to kind of support your teammates as well, so that's a bit of a mistake there. You see I do deploy it there, but I think when I was close to that smoke cloud, that would have helped detect that Jervis. Here would take a shot, that would have finished him off, but one of my teammates took him out, so that's fine. Now you notice there was an Atlanta that I did take a quick shot at. I've seen 3 or 4 Atlantas so far. I think it's an interesting ship to play against. I don't know if a lot of the players that have purchased it with doubloons fully understand how to play it. Some of the guys that have commented on my videos that have played it on PC say it's best kind of utilized as a long range, kind of a sniper ship, typically hiding behind islands. And that's basically how this guy's playing, so I don't know if this guy's a PC player or he just happens to be doing how those players are recommending using the ship, but I'm trying to move into position here to deal with him. You can see right there, he's kind of stationary there, even taking a shot or two. He doesn't pull back immediately. Now here, looking back in this replay, this is potentially a good time to switch to AP rounds. When you're closing within the 8-kilometer range, that's typically, in my experience at least, when you get the nice flat trajectory that'll allow you to hit some Citadel shots. And the Citadel should be positioned under those turrets, so that was an opportunity to potentially do some higher damage there. We did knock out a couple turrets with AHE, which is fine. But considering he's not really moving, if I was him, I'd probably be backing up a little bit since he's taking fire, which is what I'm counting on. Now he's staying stationary. That's alright, I'm going to move forward. We do switch to AP rounds there. That's not potentially a Citadel shot, but as we move forward, it will be. And now he does begin to move backwards. So we're able to clip him with a couple Citadels there and end his game. So overall, that's a fairly decent opening sequence for the ship. Now, you know, I say kind of long-range HE reliant. That doesn't mean, you know, completely passive. I would say that sequence there was fairly aggressive. It's just kind of how I play in general. I'm not into gravitating towards the edge of the map and just sniping and taking long-range, inaccurate shots while I sit back and watch my team die. That's not how I like to play the game. It's not how I would recommend playing the game. And it's certainly not how I'd recommend playing the ship. I mean, you can get involved in the action. I'm just saying you don't want to be front lines tanking for your team or anything, because they are prone to getting sunk when they get into overly aggressive positions. Now there I was inclined to take a look at that destroyer, but this Fuso here is within range detecting me. This play, in retrospect, I don't think it's very wise. It's always nice to get torpedoes in the water whenever you can, but presenting a flat broadside to that guy, that could have been a very costly mistake right there. Now, an 8.5 or 9-kilometer torpedo strike against a ship that knows that you've launched torpedoes at him, and if that guy is semi-experienced, he should be able to figure out that I did launch torpedoes. I talk about it more with destroyers, but anytime you see a ship that's capable of launching torpedoes, stop firing their guns for a period of time, turn directly sideways towards you, and then change direction immediately after that. That's a telltale sign that a torpedo strike has been launched. So all he has to do in that instance is just slightly nudge his steering wheel, or maybe change the speed from full to 3/4, and those will miss him by a mile. So my point is, the chance of those torpedoes hitting him is very slim, and then the risk of presenting a full broadside target to a ship that has no one else to shoot at besides me is high risk, high reward if it hits, but very low probability that it will hit. So consider that. You know, that's part of the reason I don't know. I don't want to harp on torpedoes and cruisers, because they can be very effective. Maybe I don't use them as much as I should, but you know, in my opinion, that was just a risky play that was unnecessary. Now here I'm fine with the angle I'm at here. Watching this back, I would just stay, either hit stop or maybe point my nose at him and then back up slowly. The tendency for a lot of players is to feel the need to fire all their guns every time they fire a salvo, and it can be a mistake often. You know, there's nothing wrong with firing the 2 forward guns. You'd rather present them a minimal target that, even if they do hit, it's not going to do a lot of damage, and shoot 2/3 of your guns, rather than add an extra gun, which in this case is only going to do 2,000 damage if it hits. Whereas you can see there, I took at least one Citadel. You know, whatever it was, it looked like it was about a 20 grand damage shot, or 15, or whatever it was. I mean, it was a massive hit for, what did I get out of it? An extra grand or two worth of damage. Even setting the fire on them, it's not worth the extra exposure. So That was another bad play there, in my opinion. But, you know, just... these replays are just as valuable for me to go back and watch as they are for you, hopefully. It's just every game that you can watch and just kind of pick out things that you would improve upon or change. I think that's how you learn and become a better player. So this, I guess, my overriding point in this case is I should not be doing anything besides pointing the rear or the front of my ship directly at this guy. You know, and if I can only hit him with one gun in the rear or two guns in the front, that's fine. I shouldn't be dueling a Fuso at close range anyways. It's just not a very good play. This is a nice torpedo strike there. One thing I do want to point out, you can see the indicator is lined up at the island. I always try and avoid having torpedoes hit an island if possible because they do cause a splash. So even if the torpedoes are out of range where they won't have the triangle indicators in the water, or in other words, if the torpedoes won't be visible to him yet, then the splash on the island is just an indicator of A, there's torpedoes in the water, which he could probably guess, but B, it gives him a idea of where they are, which will allow him to react. Luckily for me, he doesn't respond in time for this one, and we're able to catch him and sink him there. So that last 3-4 minutes, I thought, you know, I'm lucky to be alive. I don't think it was a very good play overall, and I like to point those things out to you guys. I hope that, you know, I hope kind of gives you, I think that's as informative to point out mistakes as it is to point out things that I think are good plays too, so. And then this New Mexico here, potentially I could have loaded AP shots there. He was low enough health, and you know, score-wise, I wasn't really concerned with dying at this point. But I don't know. In the end, it didn't really matter. And then here we got this Aoba, or whatever the hell this thing's called. Now at this point, I'm sure anyone playing this would take this shot, but I did want to make the point that a lot of players are really hesitant to shoot destroyers long range, and it will lower its priority because A, it's not a threat to torpedo you at that range, but it's not impossible to hit destroyers long range. If you're in this zoomed in mode, when I made my aim indicator video, whatever it was called, the numbers I used on there were for the fully zoomed out level of zoom for aiming. I think most players are probably fully zoomed in, and I am too. If you're fully zoomed in and a destroyer is going horizontally and he looks like he's full speed, just multiply it by 3 the seconds to target. So, for instance, if he's 5 seconds away, then right at that 15 second mark is usually a good spot to aim. So, you know, leading targets is a feel. It's got a lot of feel to it. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that look at the Aoba. If you did, hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Questions, comments, leave them below. I'd love to hear from you. And we'll see y'all later. Alright, peace.